Good morning, and day one. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you. We started it just a little bit later because we had a disturbance with the internet. So here we are. As always, it's always a pleasure and an honor to have you here. And I think we're going to have a very, very interesting program today. Let me thank those of you who have always joined us every single Sunday. Thank you so much. We really, truly appreciate you. And for those of you who don't know me, I am your host, Dibia Ochuaja. It's good to be back. I was gone last Sunday, and I do want to take this opportunity to thank the Dibias for the exemplary presentation they made last Sunday. I'd like to welcome all of you again, and as you have joined us to continue this journey toward spiritual empowerment, to achieve a state of Amarachi, which is a state of complete spiritual emancipation. That is certainly what we want. I would like now to welcome my co-host, Dibia Ochuaja. UD, how are you today?
I am good. Okay, Dibia, every day above ground is a good day, and I am happy to be alive. I am so excited, about this show today, and I just can't wait. The topic is very, very, very sweet, and I think our audience are going to be very much enlightened by the end of this show. So let's do it.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do, as usual, is we are going to pour libations. I would like to welcome the other Dibias, but our key Dibia today, which is Dibia Ikenna Osimiri. We are going to invite him as we present him. Dibia, Dr. Monet, today's her daughter's birthday party. So she's busy with that, When duty calls, you have to respond. So that's where she's at today.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Dibia Ochuaja has not joined us yet, but we're anticipating that he will. And so anyway, I want to welcome those of you who are already in and those who are coming in. Welcome. Let's see. Dr. Chiedozie is going to be about an hour late because he is stuck at an event, but he will join us as soon as he can. So it's going to be myself, Dibia Ochuaja, and certainly Dibia Ikenna Osimiri. My grandchildren, before they eat, they say a simple prayer. Chineke imela yagazie ofo iseo. I think that is very significant because I want them to get acquainted with their culture. So today, simply, I would say Chineke imela yagazie ofo. As we pour libations, I'll just add additional longings. And I always ask people, just be prepared every Sunday when we come. Be prepared because we're going to pour libations. So have your bowl and have your glass of water or whatever the container is for you to put your water in. So Chineke, we thank you for life. Thank you for this life. Please stand in the way of anything that may disrupt that safety. Thank you for nourishment. He said, Chineke anyị ekele gị maka ndị ojii. We want to thank you for our people. We are so powerful and so necessary in this world, whether we know it or not, Chineke, but you know why you put us here. So thank you. Thank you for humanity. Please, Mother, Father God, bless all of our ancestors. Shield us from our enemies. Shield us from the unexpected. What we don't understand, what we don't expect. Before they never see us. You say, I know if you're not an answer. I know you're not God. As we move forward, may evil be in the back. As we move to the back, may it be in front. In other words, may it not align with us. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Somebody say, through life like ducks in water that never drown. May we be like the chickens who will roam free and meet nothing. Nothing cuts their feet. And so it is with us. Nothing will cut us. We will move freely. We will move healthy. We will move according to the plan that you have for us. And that is that we are well, that we are nourished, that we are healthy. So nothing but goodness shall follow us. Chineke, if I can, I really. But Chineke, I obi anyi lari elu lere nnọnọ ha na-efe kwa ahụ na-efere ma obi adatụkwa anyị mba. Let our spirit soar as high as the eagles. May we never be despondent for any reason whatsoever. You say ka na-arịọ gị nyere anyị aka n'ụtụtụ, nyere anyị aka n'ogre, nyere anyị aka n'abalị. Help us in the afternoon, in the morning, in the evening. May the sun shine for us, even in the darkness. May may our honorable ancestors intercede on our behalf daily. We say thank you for, because if it wasn't for you, we would not be here. This is our prayer today, so let it be. We say, and I ask you, if you did pour this with us, just take a little bit of that and sprinkle around so that you can have the opportunity to shoo away any negative energies that may be around you. So welcome. Now that we have asked for intercession, we have prayed to the ancestors, we have honored the ancestors, and we have prayed to Chineke. Now it is time to talk about why we are here. We have so much to talk about today. This is just the start. Our sermon today is the real meaning of the forbidden fruit. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. This is Genesis 2:16 through 17. Well, I'm going to bring in Dibia Ikenna Ochuaja, Ikenna Osimiri, who is going to elaborate on what I just talked about on our topic. Oh, yeah, is it? How are you? Welcome. Take it away.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're glad that you could join us. Today's topic, what is the forbidden fruit, is very interesting because it relates to a lot of things that we have experienced in the past as people of color. But also, it's very interesting that there are a lot of what's involved in this topic today we are seeing currently occurring in our present with things that are going on in everyday news that we have. Now, I want to thank Dr. Ray Hagins for bringing this to my attention. And I don't have a problem when I'm listening when people who are teaching. So, Dr. Hagins, I just want to let you know that there are many of us out here who are listening and learning and adding to what you're talking about.
Yes.
What is the forbidden fruit? Well, you know, we have the creation story of the Bible. And in the Bible, Chiist Osimiri read you one aspect of the creation story, one of the creation stories. But there are two creation stories in the book of Genesis. In Genesis 1, there's a creation story. And in Genesis 2, there's a creation story. And not only are there two creation stories in the Bible, in Genesis 1 and 2, there is a third creation story that was left out of the Bible relative to the book of Jasher that's discussed in 1 Samuel. And in the book of Jasher, there's a third creation story. And it's very interesting that in that creation story, a lot of the drama that's found in Genesis 1 and 2 is left out. But let us first confine ourselves to the issue that brought this up, and that's the creation stories in the Bible, in Genesis 1 and 2. And before I go on, let me just say this. As was brought to my attention, and I found it very, very important and very useful, it's something that we need to stress. As we teach about the truth and where the truth intercepts certain teachings that run contrary to the truth, we are not anti-Bible.
Yes.
We are anti-Bible. We are anti anything that contradicts common sense and truth, because what we are talking about precedes the Bible. Anti means before, not against. And so when we bring truth and light that sheds light on other things that have been told that are misleading, doesn't mean that we are anti. Yes, we are anti-truth, but we don't have a concern with trying to take and destroy the Bible. What we want to do is present the truth. And if the truth changes that perception, then that is the foundation and function of truth. So in Genesis 1, verse 26, we get into the scripture where it says, let us make man, first of all, in our image, according to our likeness. And let them rule over the fish of the ocean, the birds of the sky, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth, etc., etc. In verse 27, we get into the actual creation. It says, God created him, male and female. There's no mention of an apple. There's no mention of the tree of life. no mention of prohibitions against consuming any of the created items for food. Now, in Genesis 2, there's a story of the creation of man and woman. And in that creation story, man is formed from the dust of the ground, and then woman is taken and created from the rib of Adam. So let's hold up right here at this intersection here. First of all, you have two creation stories in the same book, one right after another, that differ from each other. Your light should go on. Secondly, what's brought to our attention here is that in the first creation story, Adam has a first wife. In the second creation story in Genesis 2, Eve is the second wife of Adam. Now, let's back up here. Let's back up here. Let me say this again. Adam had a first wife and a second wife. And that first wife's name was Lilith. And in the ancient Aramaic and Hebrew text, they go into more discussion of Lilith. But Lilith is turned into a demon and taken out of this picture because, you know, first of all, when you're looking at this and you're saying, well, wait a minute, Adam had a first wife. And the story goes partially is that Lilith, Adam's first wife, refused to be subject or subjugated beneath Adam because, in effect, she and Adam were created at the same time out of the same entity, out of the earth at the same time. So they were equals. But the Bible doesn't want woman to be equal with man. So right after they got done with that story, they looked at that and then they come up with another story. So now Eve is Adam's second wife. Eve was created out of Adam's rib. And Adam tells Eve that you are created out of me. So already you've got this discrimination established against woman. Woman catches hell from the very beginning. And that perception is propounded throughout the Bible in terms of woman. Now, you know, women, you need to look at this very carefully. What's not stated in the Bible is something that is brought to our attention in the fact that when the Creator chose a vehicle or pathway from the spiritual connection to the body of humans being brought into the world, God did not choose man as the pathway. Man is a contributor, but it is the woman who is closest to God in terms of that situation, because woman is where the Spirit of God meets the mortal body of being brought into the world. Let me repeat that again. Woman is the vehicle where God's Spirit meets the mortal person being brought into the world. Man was not chosen as that vehicle or that connecting area. So women are walking around here looking down on themselves, not realizing the spiritual value that they have and who they are. And so women, you allow yourselves to be misused and abused. And then you have a story that is being propounded that is antagonistic to your very common sense. Now, in the book of Jasher, a lot of this stuff is not even mentioned. Even the story where we get into Cain and Abel, the book of Jasher just says that Cain was born, Abel was brought forth, and Cain was a worker of the land, and that was it, and it went on. None of this stuff about Cain killing Abel or anything about that. So the question that is brought to our minds is that, first of all, what is forbidden fruit? Forbidden fruit is being considered as an indulgence, a pleasure, something that is immoral. And that raises other questions for us also. First of all, let me bring to your attention the fact of this, that what you read in this Bible, if you don't have a translation entity with you, and one of those translation entities has been referred to as Strong's Concordance, and there are others, the words that you are reading are not necessarily the meanings of what you're reading, because you don't have the original. You need to have the original translations of those words. And when you do have the original translations of those words, there is another light that should be brought to your attention, that a light should go on, because what you're reading doesn't necessarily mean what you're reading in the archaic sense. So these whole creation stories brings us to another major question that you should be asking yourself. And that is, what good are you to me to be ignorant? Did God create good and evil? If you're being told to be forewarned that you will know the difference between good and evil, then that brings another question into mind. Would God not want you to know the difference between good and evil?
Good one.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense for you to take and tell me that this is the word of God and that this is what's supposed to be, because God said, that you shouldn't have knowledge. And the only way that you can address the issue of good and evil is that you need to have knowledge, the ability to discern, wisdom. There was nothing about the tree of knowledge that said that it was going to make you better than God. It just said that you would have knowledge between good and evil. So what is God supposed to do? Is God supposed to, every time you look at something, God's supposed to come down, or so a voice from heaven says, that's good. You can do that. No, that's evil. That's a lot of God intervention. So this whole story, what we need to understand is that knowledge is the forbidden fruit. And why? Because when you have knowledge, you have wisdom, you have discernment, you have skill, you have the ability to take and address the pathway of your life as God would have you to do it. Today, and that's why I said, this reflects on the fact that in the Bible, women were made to catch hell as scapegoats. I'm telling you, because when you consider the fact that they had to do this because, first of all, you know, the story about why would a male discriminate against a woman? Well, there have been documentaries on this. Man looked at woman, again, getting back to that connection, that spiritual connection where God's spirit and the mortal come together. Man looked at woman and said, that woman is bringing forth another person that looks like me in my image, in her image. I can't do that. And as was said in the movie Malcolm X, when Malcolm X was standing outside when they were standing outside the jail with all of the members from the Nation of Islam in formation, the white police officer said, "That's too much power for a Negro," and I'm being nice, a Negro to have. So they looked at that and they said, "That's too much power for a woman to have. We got to do something about that." So they began to vilify the woman. I'm telling you, this is so deep. I'm not even getting into it totally, but we could really get into this if we needed to. This is so deep. Why are women being told today? Why are they being persecuted today? They want to tell you, you can't control your body. You can't read. They're telling all of us that. You can't read. We want to control your health. We want to control how you have children. We want to control what you read, your mindset, everything. We want to control that. It's gotten to the point now they've even stepped away from the Bible. Now they're just coming out right now and coming to your face and telling you plain to your face. We don't want you thinking at all. We'll tell you what to do. We'll tell you how to dress. We'll tell you how to take care of your body. And some of us, will go along with that. We'll run down to the voting place and vote for those people who are telling you what you can and cannot do and what you should and should not do. And you're still in the same shape or worse than you were in the beginning. So I don't know, this is up for discussion, but I just think that it's so interesting that we have allowed ourselves to take and buy into this story to the point where we will recite this verbatim, word by word, and believe it without questioning it.
I have a question. That is, first of all, UD, can we say that? That was to the point. To the point. Wonderful. UD, we can't hear you. Yes. Go ahead.
No, I said I'm totally blown away by this lecture by Chief Ikenna, and it's just Dibia Ikenna, and not that it arouses a lot of question in me because I've been raised to kind of think along those lines anyway. But it's just the fact that he brought up some succinct, knowledge that just totally floored me, particularly the Creation 1, Creation 2, and I think Creation 3 story, which was really not really included in terms of mainstream, narrative of the first man and woman. But this is just a lecture that was just so needed. And the audience and people out there needed to hear what he had to say. And then, of course, open up for discussion so that we could delve deeper into it. So I am very appreciative of Dibia Ikenna being on this show today. And I know that by the end of this show, we'll be the more wiser.
Yes. And the point he made about moving from one story to the other because it doesn't satisfy the intent of, the writers of the holy book. She's got too much power, so we've got to neutralize that. Where it gets a little confusing for individuals, if you say that we are made in God's own image, God made man in his own image. Well, if it's a woman that's producing man, is God female?
Questions, ask it. These questions need to be asked.
That's it. So the question I have then is, if woman is the one that brings forth life, is then the image female? Is that the image? God made man in his own, because man is not producing life, so that image couldn't be male. Then it's female. And we know that males started as females. So perhaps when you were created, you were female. In the likes of Chineke, then you cannot go ahead.
You about to get a lot of. You about to create a wave of nuclear guidance.
Right.
It's true. Questions. You can answer that.
In biology, when we study embryology, we find that the fetus demonstrates both, at some point in that development, all male fetuses, all males embryos were female. And later in that development stage, there is a change due to the genetic structure of maleness that causes certain things to move around and be repositioned in the embryo, where the testes were up in the area where the ovaries were. There is a signal that is sent to the body during development that allows those ovaries now to descend into the scrotum and become testes. And one of the issues that we need to understand is that in biology, whether it's human biology or animal biology or insect biology, sometimes things don't go the way they are normally supposed to go. And so you have differences that happen. There are some entities that are produced that are not actually normal. And so you have this in the population. You may have it in a small number, but you have it in the population. Now, there's some things that we say that are socially learned, and there's some things that are genetically born. And so, we need to be careful when we start trying to take and point fingers at individuals, because we have nothing to do with their development. The issue we have at hand is that what some people are engaged in, I'm not engaged in. But the way I was raised is that, when I was coming up as a child, and I got to be, in my teens, we had an area of the neighborhood where we had the guys that hung out, at the pool hall. They drank wine all day long, and they hung around, smoked cigarettes, drank wine. Well, I never smoked cigarettes and drank wine and hung out at the pool hall, but I respected them as individuals, and I always showed them respect, irregardless of their social status or whatever they were in life. And by that, I was able to get along. And I was respected because I respected them. So, it takes us all day long to take and deal with us in ourselves, let alone trying to pass judgment on somebody else. So this issue about, yeah, in our image, and that's the other thing too. You said, let us. Didn't say I'm going to do it. Said, let us make man, including woman, in our image. So you got that also, because who, so this whole story. So now, because woman did one thing, now you want to blame it on one of the us's? Oh, I didn't do that. That was one of the us's, one of the others who was involved in this whole process. Do you see God? You see that in the scripture anywhere? You don't see that.
You ain't gonna see that either. It's not gonna happen. Look, I don't know, man. I'm just so happy that Dibia Ikenna Osimiri is with us today, because he's brought up this topic. Really deals with something that we should have been talking about a long time ago. I'm not talking about us on this program, but collectively as human beings, these are some of the things that when it comes to religion, we really need to delve in deeper into. God is merciful only because only if you're a man, in most religions. And in most religions, God hates a woman. The way religion treats women sometimes makes you wonder, what's the purpose of bringing them about anyway? Forget about procreation and all that stuff. I mean, what's the idea of having women? Why do I need to be coupled and married to somebody? Why is there not another avenue of reproduction that does not include this inferior human being called woman? That's what we should be talking about. Folks, I'm going to do a little bit of juxtaposition just briefly. In Chiism, in terms of our creation story, and then in Christianism, in terms of their creation story. In Chiism, Chineke created Ifenta, created Adam, and then told them, everything that I've created around you is for your own good. Let me repeat. Everything that I've created around you, which will include the tree of life, is for your own good. From trial and error. Let me repeat. From trial and error, you will be able to determine those things that are good for you to help perpetuate your existence on earth. I'm in you always. I'm that little faint voice in you telling you what to do in times of trouble, telling you what is right and what is wrong. What is right and what is wrong in our cosmogony was not based on a tree. It was based on the human conscience, Chineke in you. That's the difference. That's why I'm doing the juxtaposition. Over here, it tells you there's a tree of life. You're supposed to remain ignorant. You're not supposed to have any knowledge. You're supposed to be in the dark. You're not supposed to know the difference between right and wrong. Really? Really? You're not supposed to know the difference between right and wrong. But once you eat this fruit, you now know the difference between right or wrong. You now know that it's not right for you to kill somebody. I mean, what did you need the 10 Commandments for anyway? If you already ate the fruit, there was no need for the 10 Commandments, because the 10 Commandments is about right and about wrong. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife. All the do's and don'ts is contained in the 10 Commandments, supposedly. And remember, the 10 Commandments is about opposite. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt kill. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt lie. The 10 Commandments is about opposites, right and wrong, left and right. That's what life is all about. You cannot expect us to believe that you're supposed to waddle through life without knowing the difference between right and wrong. Well, let me tell you some of the benefits about eating this forbidden fruit. Now, think about this for a second. If we didn't know the difference between right and wrong, scientific discovery would not be possible. As a matter of fact, we'll probably be on this show talking naked because we wouldn't know we're naked. There will be no need for this. There will be no need for that. There will be no need for the clothes that I got on. We'll be sitting here naked having a show. But even that will be impossible, because without knowledge, we won't even have the technology to have what it is that we're doing right now. So are you telling me that as human beings who were just designed to be naked, run around in the Garden of Eden, even the knowledge of knowing how to farm, we wouldn't even know how to farm. We'll just be there plucking fruits that we're supposed to eat and ignoring this fruit here that will make life better, that will allow us to evolve as human beings. Evolution in terms of how we think will not be a possibility because we refuse to eat this supposed fruit. But I'll tell you something else, and this one is going to blow your mind. The reason why religions, most of them, not in Chiism, because in Chiism, Chi and Eke, male and female essence, makes up Chineke. That's why we say Chineke. Because without the Chi, you can't have the Eke. Without the Eke, you can't have the Chi. It is complementary in our understanding of Chineke, that there is no separation or any inferiority between either sex. Now think about this for a second. The reason why, in my deduction, that most religions seem to have this negative feeling about women is the idea that man is incapable of producing another human being, so man feels inferior. It is that inferiority complex that you have. It is that being envious of the power that a woman has to produce a child. That's why most religions don't put women on the same level as men and use the physical superiority in strength as an anchor to claim that you're more superior to a woman. Yeah, you are strong with the big muscles and you can lift a lot of weights, but you cannot produce another human being. And spiritually and biologically, that elevates a woman above a man. On the spiritual and physical level. And because of that, they decide to marginalize women, to make them second fiddle to man, elevate themselves above the woman, and God becomes a he, and the female essence of creation of Chineke is now null and void. There's no more complementary relationship anymore. After all, the woman can't produce without the man. Neither can a man produce without the woman. So instead of looking at them as two complementary creations on equal footing, each playing their separate role in this cauldron of life, man now elevates themselves, particularly in Abrahamic religion, where Adam obeyed God and didn't eat the fruit till Eve came and gave it. Now man has sinned because of woman. You now become a recess excuse as to why man cannot claim responsibility for their own misdeeds. God gave the order to Lot and his family not to turn back when they were leaving, I think it's Sodom or wherever they were leaving, but guess who turned back and disobeyed God? Woman, Lot's wife, just turned into salt. Man, what's it got? Samson. The big muscle guy, the strongest man in the world, loses his strength because woman cut his hand. A woman now becomes the recess excuse for men not taking responsibility for their own action. I'm here to tell you, you were meant to eat that apple. Knowledge is part of evolution. We were not meant to run around in the Garden of Eden naked, eating all kinds of fruits, dancing and prancing with lions and tigers and elephants or whatever, Komodo dragons, whatever you could think of, swatting flies all over the garden naked, being ignorant for 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years, for 7,000 years, which is how far back Jewish mythology goes from creation to the present. It's about 7,000 years. So you're telling me that we were supposed to, for 7,000 years, dance and prance around, going to the moon is not possible, going to the classroom, driving a car, bridging the gap between continents would not have been a possibility if we just continued to listen to this story about the idea that knowledge is sinful. That's what the Bible tells you. You see in knowledge. Really? I mean, we could continue this, but I'll stop for now.
I just want to comment on what Akachi wrote. We want to thank the men. We want to thank you, men, for eating the apple.
I mean, come on, man. Yeah. Think about that.
Let me tell you this. You know what? The more, I've said this before, and it's not just, it didn't originate from me. As a matter of fact, I heard it from Jan Levans, and something that Stephen Biko has shared with young South African youth. The most powerful tool in the hands of an oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Even when you realize you're being oppressed, as long as your mind tells you that you're not being oppressed, you will embrace those things that happen to you, particularly when a holy book says it's okay. That's God's intention. What do I mean by that? Yesterday, I had a show on Ndomoto, and it was on reparations. Why reparations is so very important in the Black community. Most people think reparations has to do with just money, Black people getting money, but it's a whole lot more than that. But the key point here I want to make is that there's a woman who she's passed. She was an activist, very well known, I think, in Uganda. And she spoke about the fact that we as Africans have given the world everything. You've taken from us, but you have not reimbursed us for what you've taken from us. She said all these things that were really, it's just that we don't have the time for me to play that video, but she says all these things, pointed out the resources, the human cargoes that were taken out of Africa. Mm-hmm. But then after that, she got soft when the woman, the interviewer, who's a white woman, was asking her, well, what are you ever going to forgive us? She says, it's not your fault. You did what you did so that you can survive. We can't blame you for that. Whoa, wait a minute. You just said everything they've done. But all of a sudden, so in other words, something has convinced her, right? That the truth, she shouldn't embrace the truth. She can see the truth. But because of her religion, she's not supposed to be able to decipher what is wrong and what is right. So instead of calling that woman to the carpet and saying, no, you guys were wrong what you did, she told her, oh no, I'm not mad at you. So what's the point of what you're saying? This is what we're doing. We know what's wrong, but because we've been indoctrinated with this whole concept of, the truth, the forbidden fruit, we are forbidden from acknowledging truth. When we see it, we don't say it. We can see things that are wrong going on with our people. There's nothing worse than seeing a video of a police officer shooting a Black teen in the back. And what are this crowd of Black people doing? They're taking pictures. They don't even challenge. I don't say be violent. I mean, challenge what you just saw on the spot. One police officer can cow 20 Black men.
Yeah.
Because you've been conditioned to be so fearful to speak the truth when you see the truth or when you hear the truth. That fear that there are consequences for you to see, to speak the truth, just like Ikenna is saying. This is the problem that we are experiencing by adhering to information that is not for our own good. How this woman all of a sudden, after sharing all of this, told this woman, oh, Akachi pointed that out. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's not your fault. Where did she get that from? Who convinced her that it was okay? She told us the problem. She says that we should do something about it. But then when the person, the culprit, says, are you mad at me? She says, no, I'm mad at you. You can't help it. I mean, Ikenna, what do you want to say about that?
Well, what was brought up, the fact that the way we were raised, that every Black person who goes along with this biblical story without asking questions, our savior is blonde and blue-eyed. so that we become so conditioned that when we do something, we don't even know if it's right, or we don't have the capacity to think for ourselves unless it's co-signed by our Savior, who is blonde and blue-eyed. We won't do anything for ourselves to move ourselves when we see that we are even in danger. As it was brought to my attention, it says, and we talk about Kwanzaa and then Nguzo Saba. Every ethnic group who comes here practices, we talk about Kujichagulia, but we won't get together and form units to promote our own well-being. But every other group, ethnic group that comes here practices Kujichagulia.
Yes.
And you know, it's so interesting because as I was reading this, because I was brought up in Christianity as a child. So as I'm reading this, you know, it never appeared to me or that as much as I've read this and reread it, that what's this first wife and second wife deal going on? There was a first wife. She did not want to be subservient. And so she left. And so they did everything. They said that, well, you know, she was a demon, and, you know, they tried to, God and the angels tried to persuade her to come back, and she wouldn't do it. And basically, she was the first feminist because she wasn't going to take that stuff. And so then she was threatened, you know, having her children killed and all this kind of stuff. And then she became a demon and she was killing people. Well, you know, when I read this, and the text is in the Jewish folklore, this story about Lilith is very, very strong. In the Bible, there's only one other reference, and that is in Isaiah. And in Isaiah, they talk about the woman being as a demon. But, you know, I was thinking back, you know, I really used to watch Frasier. And, you know, Frasier was supposedly Jewish in the sitcom. His wife's name was Lilith. And if you remember when you watched Frasier, if you remember the tension that was between Frasier and his wife, even to the point where she left Frasier, she got a divorce from Frasier. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you know, art imitates life. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about this and I'm saying, what's the subliminal message that's in this TV program? Now that I have this knowledge, I'm looking at this TV program and I review it. I'm looking at her. I'm looking at the how she appears, her mental attitude, her skin color. And I'm looking at this and I'm reading some of this stuff in the ancient texts and I'm saying, wow. We get involved in stuff that we accept to the point where we think it's just common everyday occurrence without thinking. And we do that to the point where, you know, you can be brainwashed to the point that you will set up your own destruction. Mm-hmm. We say, oh, we celebrate Kwanzaa. Oh, but it's not a religious holiday. Well, you know what? To hell with me trying to take and make excuses for something that's going to strengthen me, strengthen my community, make us unified together so that when we have a need, we can coalesce around need. You know, I always say this: anybody who has chemistry background or whoever worked in construction, you know, no, we don't all agree all the time. When you make concrete, everybody has a difference, has an additive in our composition, in our concrete. Concrete's made up of sand, cement, water, and stone aggregate. And so we have differences within our own sphere. But when you bring those together and you add those together and you add water, heat is created as part of that reaction. And so we come together, we have our differences of opinion, we get heated, but we come together at a point where we understand that this is for the whole. So when concrete comes together, after the heat is dissipated from the reaction, concrete comes together as a solid, unified block of something. And if I take a piece of concrete and hit you, knock the hell out of you, you're going to be on the ground.
That's the truth.
So we as a people, yeah, we'll have our disagreements, we'll have this, whatever, but when we come together as a people, as a solid unit, working for our own benefit, you better get out the way. Because we'll just, you know what? We're not going to stand there and let you block us from what we need to do. In the 60s, we lived in Detroit, grew up in Detroit. They had a Greek town, they had a Mexican town. Coleman Young says, well, we need an area, what we used to have, we need an economic area for us as Black people. We'll call it Africa Town. They told Coleman Young, no, you can't do that. But the white folks over here had Greek Town, and the Mexicans had Mexican Town. But we can't do that. And we accepted that.
Yes, we did.
And we stand in
inferiority complex.
You know what Chief said is very true. I remember we were living in Detroit at that time, and it was such a big deal. A lot of people were so excited. We as African people were so excited to have Africa Town. And, you know, even some designs were already made and what, you know, how colorful it would be, how we have African, representations and all that sort of thing. They fought it. I mean, they fought it so hard. Yet we have the Mexican town, we have Chinatown, we have every town. But as soon as the Africa Town came into, it was all over the news. It was everything to disparage it to the point that we gave up and dropped it. We shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have done that. We should have actually fought for it. See, that's what they say. If you believe in anything, you must fight for it. Lose your time, lose your peace, lose your energy for it. True. If all that you claim and scheme is about it, then fight for it. Don't give up because somebody decides that is the wrong thing to do. I want us to go into this before, because of the time constraints. I'm not anti-Bible. I'm not anti-Bhagavad Gita. I'm not anti-Quran. I'm not anti any holy books. But you know what as a human being, I must ask questions. And that's what it is when you understand the meaning of the forbidden fruit. You must ask questions. Over the year, I suppose it's been about a year, in Florida, there has been all this advocacy towards disbanding books, making sure that books are not available. Let us remember that that was the tactic used in Germany by Hitler, okay, to start demonizing different groups, particularly the Africans and as well as the Jews. This is happening again in Florida. What is alarming to me is how people have said not. Well, some people are protesting it, but not in the way that they should protest it, because by doing what he's doing, Ron DeSantis' image is building. He's getting more and more powerful because he's doing that. That tells you a lot about what we don't understand about the truth and how to handle the truth. But there's always a savior there somewhere. All this while, for many years, the holy book, the Bible, has always been used as God's word. This is the only book that you must read. As a matter of fact, some southern states are demanding that all students read that as part of the curriculum. Well, recently, since all these books are being banned, and if you look in Florida, you find that libraries are empty, schools are empty, because books that teach are being banned, even the littlest things. So, and because they say that the parents have the right to determine what their children will read or not read. Well, this parent in Utah, because Utah introduced abolishment of books and all that stuff. So this parent said, well, since we're concerned about the well-being, well, let me just read it to you. So I just don't need to, let me just read it to you. I think it's very interesting. This is what happened in Salt Lake City. A parent frustrated by efforts to ban materials from schools convinced a suburban district that some Bible verses were too vulgar or violent for. So the good book is being treated like a bad book in Utah. This parent, frustrated by all these efforts to ban materials from schools, have not convinced them that the Bible has, because Bible verses were too vulgar or too violent for younger children. Now, the decision comes as conservative parent activists, including state-based chapters of the group Parents United, descended on school boards across the country, throughout the United States, sowing alarm about how sex and violence are talked about in schools. So a copy of the complaint, this is just the abbreviated information. A copy of the complaint obtained by the Salt Lake Tribune through a public records request shows that the parent noted the Bible contains instances of incest, prostitution, and rape. The complaint derided a bad faith process and said the district was ceding our children's education, First Amendment rights, and library access to Parents United. So now, Utah Parents United left off one of the most sex-reading books around, the Bible. The parent complained. So here we are. The Bible can no longer be read by minors. So only high school can you find the Bible. And then the Bible, accordingly, wherever the children go to read, if there's a Bible there, it has to be removed. If there's a Bible in the hotels where a parent may have children, it has to be removed. You've got to be very careful what you teach.
What you ask.
Be very careful what you say. If you want to say that you want to focus on values for children, and then you start eliminating books, particularly books that tell children about the history of Black people, the history of the Chinese, the history of women's suffrage, and then you live out the holy book. Well, guess what? Look at our holy books now. All those holy books that tell those about women, that is not complimentary. So
you're freezing.
Some people are now understanding what the forbidden fruit is, and that is knowledge. And they're speaking up. Their eyes have opened. And so now, the very book that that's being used to undermine our intelligence, it's on the chopping block.
You're kind of frozen, okay, Dibia. So let me just say this right quick, just to buttress what you said and what Dibia Ikenna was talking about. There's something called Sharia law. And let me read the definition. Classical Sharia law, the body of rules and principles elaborated by Islamic jurists during the 1st century Islam, right? These are the rules that they used to govern a society. in America, you say there's no separation of, there should be separation of the state and religion. And it seems to me like the reverse is about to happen. Are you about to institute a different type of Sharia law that you may want to call Christian law, because you're trying to rule the United States based on certain religious principles and disallowing everything else in a country where you have a right to be all you can be as long as you're not breaking the law? It seems to me like there's this concerted effort by the right, the Christian right, whatever that may be, to manipulate religion in America and make it part of their governing, just like in Florida. When you have a government that is partial to a specific religious culture and disallows everything else, you're practicing a form of Sharia. You may need to come up with a name for it, but it's one and the same. It is governing using certain religious principles that belongs to a particular faith, disallowing everything else. So there is no difference between what DeSantis is doing and what's going on in Sharia-dominated countries like Pakistan, like some states in northern Nigeria, where Islamic law trumps good governance. This is where we're headed. This is just what it is. And as far as the forbidden fruit thing is concerned, like we had, reiterated or talked about earlier on in the show, it is to keep people, in Christianism, they talk about born again, right? What does that really mean? It simply means keeping you in an infantile position so that you don't question anything. That's what born again is. Don't question anything. Just follow like a zombie. And for us Black people, let Stockholm Syndrome be the order of the day. Forbidden fruit is the same thing as being born again. Become a child that knows nothing, that you have to instruct. There is no difference. It's just another way of saying it. Don't eat the forbidden fruit. Be ignorant. Don't know anything. Just survive or live on instincts like a child, like a baby. And forbidden truth, being born again, forbidden truth is one and the same. And for us, Black folks, getting back to what Chief Dibia Ikenna and Dibia talked about in terms of creating an African city in the United States, in Detroit or whatever. The idea that in our schooling, in our upbringing, we never merged our history, our contributions to civilized behavior, to who or what we see ourselves as, to who we are, knowing that our past is just as great as anybody else's. We don't see any value in who we are. So in the end, the supposed woke Black folks are the ones that are for this kind of plan to create an African neighborhood or a part of the city that caters to people of African ancestry. You want a lawyer, you go to, if you're Black, you go to an African town, you could get a Black lawyer. You go to the grocery store, you go to see a Black doctor, almost like the little town that was built in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was destroyed in the 1920s. It's about the same thing. It's trying to relive that, give you a sense of pride, and help build the Black community. And I could tell you, the biggest opposition to a Black African town is not the white folks. It's not the Iranian or the Iraqis or the Greeks or the Indians that already got theirs. It is the African people, African Americans, Africans themselves that are so alienated from their history and their culture, that see everything African as evil, that hate their ancestors and see no value in themselves. They are the biggest opposition for anything like that to happen. Because if Black people ever came together as one, vibrated on the same level, and see the same thing understand that the imperative of such an exercise, African time would have been possible, not just in Michigan. It would be possible here in Atlanta. It would be possible in LA. In Los Angeles, they have Ethiopian town. You go to California, Los Angeles, there's a part of the city that have Ethiopians, Somalians in the same neighborhood, and they cater to one another. They hardly go beyond their area when they're looking for services. It is possible, but because those people see themselves differently. And that's why they made it possible. But you cannot have a place where you come in and see straight up Black folks, sub-Saharan Africans, come together, cherishing themselves, their history and their culture, their contributions to civilized behavior, loving who they are and saying, you know, we need this, not just for us to be able to, you know, create an environment where we flourish, but for our children, so that our children can see value in themselves. The mind is messed up. We still feel like we're going to be born again and the forbidden fruit kind of thing. We've embraced the idea that we have to be ignorant. We've embraced the idea that, according to a lot of writings, when Chineke, when God needed to have a son, it was made possible through the same woman that you marginalize and treat as inferior, that Chineke, God, found it necessary to be able to bring his only begotten son into this world through a woman.
Again,
the same woman that she saw no value in. And you never spread the word out there that Lilith was created from the sand, just like Adam. They were created equal. He didn't come from Adam's ribs. It's only when Adam was not able to control Lilith that Adam complained to God. And they banished Lilith. Lilith became a demon. And then God gave Adam another wife, his second wife, and made him through Adam's rib, so that the second wife will now be subservient to Adam and not be like Lilith, who wasn't listening to what the heck Adam had to say, because Adam ain't got nothing to say anyway.
Oh my goodness. Woo. You can let me bring You've been listening.
Dibia Ochuaja, Dibia Osimiri,
Well, we're going to invite you to the conversation, you know, the meaning of the forbidden fruit. You didn't come in at the time that Ikenna started the discussion, but based on what you've heard thus far, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm coming in this time. You know, tomorrow is our exam, so I have to oversee a lot of things here to make sure the exams no flaws beginning from tomorrow. So I'm sorry for that. Well, I think Dibia Ochuaja, I met you just at the point where I share similar views as you, because I used to say it seems that the Christian God from beginning wanted zombies in paradise. If not, yeah, that's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. And even though if you look at the criteria for entering the Christian heaven, you have to practice faith, and the faith we are talking about is empty faith, faith not backed by reason, which can be described as a blind leap into a dark hole. And so, because at the end of the day, you'll find that those who are in heaven are zombies, complete zombies. Then, if you look at the question of the Christian theodicy and the revolt of Lucifer, Lucifer becomes Satan. You discover that the Christian God is so self-centered that the cherubim and seraphim are busy praising him and his glory, and he left out the rear, who is Lucifer, who also knew the secret of creation. So that one had time for revolt. But if you come within the within Chiism, you discover that Ago, who is the mind of God, was given the most Herculean task of providing daily bread for humanity and balancing, bringing about balance amongst the opposites in the universe. So he has his hands full, and the God of Chiism goes, governs the whole universe by delegation, delegating his own ministers, his own children to different tasks. And he has just that of a life and overseeing things. So he's in charge, but he leaves other of his children or his ministers to be in control. Unlike the Christian God who wants to be the see everything, beginning and end of everything. So he has his hands full, and at the end of the day, is quite limited in the sense that even when the fall occurs, he doesn't know that it has occurred. Satan is always ahead of him. And so you find a lot of contradictions in the Christian theodicy. I struggled with that for years as another from secondary school, and I was forced to church until finally in 1994, when I started about to start my PhD, I had to say, okay, to hell. Even that, here I'm called a rebel because the school I went to was founded by the Presbyterians, the American missionaries. And before you left school, you must have been preached to 1,100 times, by which time you have been programmed zombie, you cannot leave Christianity anymore. And so that people like me left, I'm called a rebel, I'm called all sorts of names. And that's exactly what they don't want us to be, because Christianity is pure indoctrination.
Yes.
And that's what they have made us Africans to be. Because if I go back to the Jewish Kabbalah, the Garden of Eden is not supposed to be a place on earth. It's supposed to be a state in knowledge. In the same way, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge are not supposed to be physical trees in a place on earth. They're supposed to be like ideal points for regulating human mind. So they're supposed to be ideal states of things. That is why Maimonides, when he was invited in Spain to help to propagate Christianity, and then they will allow the Jews to have their state, he said, no, they have their documents intact, and they will refuse until the dying days to propagate the lies concocted before their own very eyes, and they own their own children, the Jewish children, unborn generations, the mandate of teaching the truth, that what they have packaged in Christianity is all but lies. So, and what they have designed is to make us zombies. That is why Constantine, in the gathering of the conference of the 219 bishops, had to order that hell be brought into the Bible, so that if you went against, and if you go against the new religion and the new emperor, you will go to hell. In fact, physical hell, the Valley of Inferno, was created, where people were thrown into fire. So punishment. That is to deter the human mind from thinking. And then they started giving us blind faith, empty faith. That's what the Romans brought. Because for the Greeks still left reason. That's why the Greeks brought Krishna to be Christ, and they equaled him with reason. They made him opposite of what Moses is, so that if Moses represented the law, Christ represented reason. But when the Romans came, the Romans concentrated on Paul, and Paul said, anything goes. What does it take to believe in Christ? Just confess in the name, die on the house, no matter what you have done in the past, be you a criminal, whatever you are, and thou art saved, thou art the house. So John Calvin and others will cash in on that and begin to preach faith. And so the danger is that if us Africans key into it, we will be exactly made what want us to be. And what they want us to be is just to be happy slaves. That's what they have made us, and they want us to continue in that. So those of us who know these secrets, those who are in Chiism who know this secret, we are rebels in their own eyes. And everything must be done to discourage us. So when we want to gather force, a monster force, by forming a nucleus, we must be disparaged. Just like Bob Marley sang, anytime I plant a seed, they say, kill it before it grows. That is the plan on ground. It's a deliberate plan. And all the world civilizations have joined in this. It was planned by the Europeans, the Arabs have joined in it, the Indians have joined in it, the Chinese have joined in it. Put the African down, because if you don't put him down and he realizes his power, we will not be able to have easy access to his land and the resources beneath his earth. I'd like to hold it at this point, just briefly. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Very well said, Dibia.
Very well said. Dibia, that was on point. I just want to add this little bit here, and then I'll go to Chief Ikenna. As a Nigerian, Dibia Chedozie, if you lived in the US, you will understand why it's imperative that we stand up for ourselves, and that I'm so proud of the youth of Nigeria who are demanding a new Nigeria, because it does impact us here. What do I mean by that? Never mind that Nigerians are the highest placed in everything, in economic, in the medical field, in IT, in economic, you name it. You will find there's nowhere. As a matter of fact, there's a comedian who said, anywhere there is no Nigerian, don't go there. Because wherever in this world that something good is happening, we're there and we're contributing. But recently, we're doing fundraising, and a friend of mine approached her friend to ask her, ask him to support the fundraiser. And this is a Black man who said, oh my goodness, I guess these Nigerians have sucked you into something. I don't, leave me out of it. I don't want to have anything to do with any Nigerian. So the woman asked, and why was that? Why don't you want to have anything to, well, you know how those Nigerians are. Really, how are the Nigerians? How many Nigerians do you know that have done those things that you claim is the reason why you have to stay away? Count how many that you know. I'm not talking about what the media told you. I'm talking about what you know. How many of them do you know firsthand that have done those things? This woman is trying to help her people. Now, you can either help or don't help, but don't log her in with all Nigerians who are doing bad things. But this is where the truth is hidden from our own people, our own African people. They tell you, remember, Nigeria is the richest nation in the world, the richest. You name it, we have it. Get a pen, get a pad, and start writing and find out what Nigeria has. So if we can make it so that the Nigerians are portrayed in a very negative light, right? We are not able to attract what we need to attract. Give a dog a bad name and you hang it. Keep people in the dark about Nigerians. There's the forbidden fruit, the truth about, Black people. It gets so bad. I have a letter that came from a young man who's Nigerian, as a matter of fact. And I had to raise that because I feel his pain. His name is Kalude. That means, I suppose, Yudi, he must be from our area.
Yeah.
He wrote to say that he has such difficulty leaving his home. He lives in Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan. He has difficulty leaving his house because he feels so fearful of living in this country as a Black Nigerian, as a Black man, because all they have to hear is what, and this is our own people. He says the biggest pain that he has is it's our own people that have been conditioned to think that other Black people are bad. He said he feels like a hunted deer, always with an X marked on his back, and he always has to look behind him. And sometimes he doesn't even want to say who he is. Not to the Europeans, but to the Black people who have bought into the idea, the lie, that our own people are bad because of a few bad apples. And I've shared this story where a gentleman I was working with, a white gentleman I was working with, he decided he wanted to work with people in the Middle East. We had a project in Nigeria, a beautiful project that we had told the governors, everybody was excited about it. Then all of a sudden, he got a letter from Jordan or somewhere like that in the Middle East. They were going to give him $43 million if he would give the guy who approached him 10,000 in exchange. So he abandoned working with me as a Nigerian. He preferred to work with this gentleman from the Middle East that he thought was from the Middle East. I, as a Nigerian, I thought that was rather odd. Why would you pay somebody 10,000 for them to give you 40 million? And they are so rich. Why would a rich man need your 10,000 if he's willing to give you 40 million? So I did my research. I told him he was on his way to the bank to withdraw 10,000 to give to this Middle Eastern person. I told him, hold up, I'll call you back. Before he says, no, he can't wait. I said, listen, before you. So anyway, I told him I'll call him back in about 20 minutes. And I found out that the person that he wanted to give that money to was in Lagos. I said, well, I'm a Nigerian, and I found out a crook that was going to take your money. But you want to think that he's the crook, though. But you were willing to give him 10,000 so that you can take 40 million that doesn't belong to you. Who's the crook? But I still give you that money. But you started by thinking you don't want to work with Nigerians. So we, as a people, have gotten so messed up, believing lies about our own people. You want to pay attention to the negatives, but you don't want to look at all the positive things that we're doing, even in your country. So and I'll let you guys jump in, but I just want to share this little thought with this gentleman. I just want to let him know that even if you feel broken, you're not. Even if you feel broken in the moment based on what people have said, you cannot carry it out. You can't act it out. A broken moment is not something that carries on in the foreseeable future unless you allow it. People's opinion about you must not be your reality. You can't allow anybody to define who you are. Everything about you is not broken. Nothing about you, for that matter, is broken. They are the ones who are broken. It's a broken person that will see another human being and describe them as broken or force them to feel broken because of something anybody else did. When you look at the ocean floor, I don't know how many of you watch National Geographics. I love it. If you look at National Geographics and discover, you go down, you see all these absolutely beautifully colored fish and sea animals. They are colorful in spite of the fact that they are way in the dark. It's like the sun is shining on them when you look at all those beautiful colors. They're in the deep, deep black waters, but they still manage to share their breathtaking colors. You, in spite of being around these dark people, you have to shine your light. That's me. Sometimes I'm surrounded by people who are so negative, but I don't allow that to define me. We need to stop allowing people to define us with their lies. Just because they believe it doesn't mean it's real. So for me, what I want him to know is you are responsible for glowing even when people want you to hide in the dark. It is not their responsibility. Your growth is up to you. Chineke made you to shine. Chineke made you to shine. Don't hide from your greatness. You can't shine if you hide from your greatness. Let people have their let them talk and believe what they want to believe, but it doesn't have to be your reality. That is my own advice to this gentleman. Be who you are. Stand tall, like Akachi said. You can't shrink from people, and that's what happens to us. We shrink because somebody said. They don't think, about us as human beings. So we fall into that trap. We believe it. And you see some of us, we hunch over when we're talking. We smile, we get so excited that some white guy is speaking in Igbo. Big deal. So you speak English. What's the big deal that he speaks your language? I've never Chineke. Yeah, and you just gushing because he's speaking your language. Aren't you speaking his? You just feel so privileged that he's speaking your language. Why can't he speak it? You speak his. What's the big deal? But anyway, that's my little advice to him. Keep shining. Don't let anybody, like we said, don't let anyone shoot on you. Be who you are. You are a bright star. If God didn't think you were something, Chineke didn't want you on this earth, you wouldn't be here. You would have died before or during birth. There's a reason for your life. And that's just my thought. Ikenna.
Well, everything that everyone has contributed has been very interesting and very true. We talk about the mind control issue. It's so, it's so interesting. What I say is when a lot of times, you hear Christians talk about faith. And my answer to that is that I consider the issue of faith as baby food, as pablum, as breast milk, because now as I experience my personal experience with Creator and the lessons that I learn and what I find out by interacting with the Creator, is that as you become stronger in experience with something, you no longer need faith. When we, as babies, we used to crawl, but as we began to toddle, we used to hold on to something. We had to hold on to a chair or a table or brother's leg or mom's leg or dad's pants leg or whatever. But as we gained more knowledge and experience, we were able to go on our own. And when I talk to somebody about faith, I say I no longer operate in faith. I operate in knowledge. My knowledge of the Creator is what carries me, not my faith, because faith indicates that something may or may not occur. But if you are young in something, that's okay for you to express yourself in that manner because you have no experience. But once you have experience with your Creator, then you no longer operate in faith. You operate in knowledge. Again, that word, knowledge, comes up again. So it's important that the Creator has given us a mind to think with, to have intercession with those things that are not seen with us, but that we can feel. And instead of us reading something and taking that as a literal meaning, we need to begin to think about what we are doing and how it impacts not only us, but our community and our representation of that which created us. If you read, again, and I always come back to this, if you read the Exodus, where Moses goes up to the mountain. See, they've changed the story. When Moses got up into the mountain and God looked down and saw that because Moses had been gone for so long that the people were rebelling and worshiping the calf, then God became jealous and said, I'm going to destroy them because they have forgotten their covenant. And then Moses turns around and tells God, why are you saying that? Why have you uttering that? And you need to repent of your sins. So Moses turns around and tells God that God should repent of his sins. Now, they cleared that up. They had to change that. At some point, somebody said, whoa, wait a minute. If, we can't have this here, because somebody's going to say, where does a mortal get off telling God that God has sinned? So they clean that up a little bit. Okay. But they forgot something. Then they go down. Then Moses goes back down to his people, goes down to the mountain with us, because he broke the first set of tablets. He goes up and gets another set of tablets, comes down. And then after God tells Moses, okay, I will not destroy your people. I will remember my covenant. Then Moses comes down and admonishes the people. Then he calls the members of the tribe together and say, who is with me? And take out your sword and go from gate to gate and kill all these people who were involved in this. But God never told you, oh, then they come up, they clean and say, oh, well, God told Moses to do that. God never told him to go down to the mount and kill 3,000 people. So Moses got so caught up in himself, the fact that he was able, see, this is where we go, we use common sense. Moses got so caught up in the fact that he was able to tell God that, God, you have sinned and you need to repent. So then God tells Moses, okay, I repent of what I've said. So now Moses is gotten so big-headed now, well, I told God to repent and God repented. So now I'm going down and I'm going to take and say, okay, what do I want to do? I'm mad now. I want to kill 3. Get your swords out. Let's go down here and let's clean this mess up. But God never told him that. There's nowhere written where you see that where God told Moses to go down and kill 3,000 people. If God didn't do it, God could do it, why would I need you to do it?
Thank you.
See, we talk about the control of the mind, to the point where you get so caught up that you can't even think for yourself how to put one foot in front of the other. And that in itself is blasphemous against that which created you. There's more demanded of you than that.
Yes, thank you. Excellent. Yudi, your thoughts?
Yeah. The greatest tool in the hands of an oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Stephen Biko, and you always remind me of that. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. There's a commercial here in the United States that also talks about that. Our mind is warped right now. We're a bunch of confused people. And I think it has a lot to do with slavery, colonization, this incessant evil education that we got through violence, that over the years has just sapped any vestige of rationalization in our minds of people of African ancestry, where self-loathing has become the norm. This thing about hating yourself, this thing about accepting somebody else's truth as real, this loathing and discarding your own contribution to civilized behavior, as if you had no ancestors before the European or the Arab came to your shores with the Bible and the Quran, as if we have no history, as if nobody came before us who were just suddenly plumped from the sky into the earth with no history, with no idea of how we came about, with no knowledge of self, of who we are. We parade the earth, regurgitating somebody else's history, somebody else's lies to a certain extent. Embrace it as truth, as our own. It's no surprise to me that nothing actually works in an African community because we have no foundation. You cannot build a castle on sand and expect it to stand. The wind blows it, it's going to fall. If there's rain, it's going to fall. We have no foundation in most African communities, not in the motherland, not in Africa, not in our diasporal communities. Do we have a sense of grounding, of I am where I am by the grace of the Almighty Chineke, and if you don't like it, let the door hit you, and you could finish the rest of the phrase. We just don't have that. And it's really unfortunate, that we waddle through life. let me say this. The gentleman that you talked about that got in touch with you that lives in Michigan, that is afraid to step out. I've always found that your greatest asset in this world is knowledge. And when I say knowledge, I'm not talking about you have to be an engineer or scientist. I know a lot of doctors that go to church every Sunday and believe that Mary is the mother of God. And they got PhDs. I'm not talking about job training. I'm talking about being educated, grounded in your own history, knowledge of self. I have found that to be a neutralizing tool. There is nobody born of woman, unless you fell from the sky, that can stand before Dibia Ochuaja, and argue me down. It's not going to happen. I haven't come. I'm a deep thinker. And I implore every person of African ancestry, those that are listening to this program, those that get introduced to this program, to go and do a thorough research on who you are as an African, on human history, understand what happened to Africa during slavery and colonization, because I don't think that we understood, or that we understand what happened to us, how we went from Kunta Kinte to Toby. Why you have people in Africa with the names like Sunday, Monday, Friday. They left out Saturday, but I know that's coming. Why your name in Africa, God's Chineke's blessing is Ngozi, but you choose to change it to blessing because Ngozi sounds evil to you. You hate yourself so much that you would take the English interpretation of your name and answer to that and discard the traditional equivalent of your language. This is part of the a tragedy of being colonized up here, of reading textbooks that don't extol you as an African, of having no understanding. It's even worse in Africa. You wake up, the Bible you read in your house. You go to school, they read the Bible. You go to church on Sunday, they read the Bible. You've never in any way in your life really interacted with your own history and your own traditions and your own culture, your own religion. It has never really happened to you. Most of African culture that you get in Africa is coming out and watching the masquerades dancing around, but you have no idea why. You embrace everything. Now you got Nigerians from the Igbo tribe that consider themselves Jews, from frying pan to fire. If Christianity is not working for you, then you go into Islam. Muhammad is not from Nigeria. And if that's not good enough for you, now you leave Islam, you jump into being a Jew. Moses, Abraham are not from Abreba. And if that doesn't work, next thing you know, the Chinese are coming. They are not going to become a Buddhist, a Confucian, a Taoist. You want to be anything other than African. You're willing to sell your soul to the same entities that are responsible for your enslavement in the first place. We are mentally sick. ChiismLive and any other exercise that tries to do what it is that we're trying to do is very welcome, because that's what we need. And even in that effort, there still has to be a consensus. Just don't come and tell me you're woke. Now you're going to go do your own thing. You go and do your own thing. Even though we all understand that we need to do certain things to be able to bring us back to prominence. But instead of our so-called woke people, those people that understand what happened to Africa, instead of us coming together and working together to achieve the same goal, everybody wants to be the boss. Everybody wants to be in control. It doesn't work that way. It's like a cauldron of soup. You bring the okra, you bring the meat, you bring the oil, you bring the water, you bring all kinds of ingredients, then you put it into what we call a pot. It is the pot that holds all these ingredients that creates this beautiful stew or soup that we eat and enjoy, and it nourishes us. That's what we should be thinking about as people of African ancestry, to come together like ingredients in a stew, housed in a pot with a fire underneath it. That fire is the desire to be great again, and we create this beautiful stew that we can all partake in and become great once again. That's my thing.
It's wonderful. Dibia Ochuaja, you want to add your thoughts?
Yeah, just I think was in 2 nights ago. I was with some Dibias here in Lagos at Center for Metaphysics, run by one of we were talking about this state of things, how we are locked out of knowledge. We are locked out deliberately. We are locked out of knowledge. Deliberately, we are fed with ignorance in the name of education. And one of us told the story of how a reverend priest in the, I think, was it 19th or 18th century Germany, stumbled, his consciousness led into a particular discovery in the Bible where he discovered a gap. So he left Germany for Jerusalem, for Damascus. And then, of course, he was told that they didn't have the secret. He had to go. They directed him to Jerusalem. Then they told him they didn't have the secret there. He should go to Jews in Fez in Morocco. Those ones said, okay, they had a bit of it with those Jews in Spain. They are the last remains who have the deep secret, but the deep secret still lies in ancient Egypt. So he went to ancient Egypt, and in Egypt he was told that, well, even they themselves don't have the original truth, that those who have the original truth are now in antiquity in Africa south of the Sahara, which is those of us there in West Africa down to Central Africa and East Africa down. And so one thing we have to know is that
Did we lose?
We lost him. Okay, well, I think we've lost him. And right now, I'm going to ask the audience if you do have any questions that you want us to answer, particularly about the meaning of the forbidden fruit as presented by Dibia Ikenna Osimiri. Please type those questions in right now. I just want to throw this in. When you think, and this is maybe just kind of different from stepping away from the focus of today, just something we should talk. I just want to mention, when you think that you are superior to Chineke and you know more than God, and you do things contrary to the ways of that's holy, when you do things that you know fully well, not just other people frown upon, but Chineke frowns upon, there are consequences. I don't know if you're aware of it right now. You know, we've been the American government has been reluctant to pass, at least focus on the weather changes that is happening all over the place. You know, and right now in Michigan is overheating. Yeah, you're aware of this, and burning. Climate change is so severe in Michigan right now because, you know, powers that be say it's nothing. Just ignore it. It's nothing. So you've got all the fires in California. You've got all the fires in now in Michigan. Michigan, I didn't know that. I just found out that Michigan is really in a bad state because of climate change. That's when we decide that we know better than Chineke. When the warning is being put out there for us, and our leaders are supposed to act, and we don't say anything. And then the thing about it also is we, as the voters, we're not saying anything. When some of us have actually fallen in to talk about the forbidden fruit knowledge, some of us have been convinced that it's all a lie. Climate change is a lie. So we're not encouraging our leaders to do anything about it. And now some of these countries are just, even New York, are you aware that New York is going up there right now? The water level in Nigeria, is that, you know about that? Huh? Yeah, and there are places in Africa that are just washing away. Then, of course, Africa is in half. How many of you are aware of that? Are you aware of that, Yudi?
What?
Africa is breaking in half.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many things going on because we refuse to do the right thing. We refuse to do the right thing. So it's catching up on us. You know, the lies, when you want people not to know the truth, it goes with something. That's what's going on. There's blinders on. You know, you don't want people to know the truth. You know, just have faith. God's going to take care of everything, you know. That's not how it works. You have to take responsibility to some degree, you know. And so here we are. This is a very, very important and meaningful program today. And I ask all of you who are watching today, I'm still waiting for you to ask your questions, but please share this video, and subscribe to ChiismLive YouTube. Please subscribe. Let's see. Somebody says, this is Akachi. Akachi says, yes, I know about this. In great details, thanks to global warming, global corporation, capitalism, and mass consumption. Yeah. You know, we just got those blinders on. We're not paying attention. This thing is getting real. You know, Michigan is finding out this is not a joke. Before it used to be, oh, California is burning, and everybody says, oh, well, as long as it's California. Well, guess what? Now Michigan is burning, and now New York is going under. They say in a few years, New York is going to be underwater. You know, Nigeria, there are states in Nigeria that are being swept away. You know, all kinds of things are going on in the world. And that's because people got these blinders on. They just want to pray it away. You know, let's just pray to see the truth. Let's just pray. You know, let's just get on our knees or whatever means that we're using without actually taking any action to make things happen. You know, to mitigate some of these things. It's really sad. It's a sad situation. But you did your hand. Was it you or who wants to?
No, I just want to say this right quick. The global warming and all that, it reminds me of Sodom and Gomorrah, or Pompeii, whatever. Yeah. And the God was angry, and God decided to punish them by creating, you know, having the volcano explode. And my thing has always been, if you are a rational thinker, you will understand that when you build a city or a town next to a volcano and it explodes and wipes everybody else, it has nothing to do with God's punishment. It has to do with you building a city next to a volcano.
Yes.
Know that volcanoes is part of God's creation. They need to erupt to be able to continue to create life and, you know, the earth and all that. So things that we should do rationally as human beings, we seem to ascribe to God because we're too lazy or too unintelligent to say that we are responsible for a lot of things that are happening to us, and we need to take control of these events and try to minimize the consequences upon us, as opposed to thinking that it's divine and that we are helpless.
And then the other thing is, what is special about Chiism is our connection to nature. Or at least we make it a point of duty that we understand that we are responsible for taking care of nature, as nature is responsible for taking care of us, because this is what Chineke has given us, not only feed us, but protect us, but we also have to do the same. You know, but unfortunately, because of all this, listen, religion is a business. Okay, so some of these religions are some aspects of these religions are designed to benefit the religion. You see, these religions at the expense of humanity. And then the problem is when we believe it, you know, we become ultimately the custodians of the lies. You know, if it's prepared, it's given to you, and you continue to perpetuate it. And we're doing that over and over and over, generationally. So certain things are just not going away because we refuse to either address it, or we refuse to, see the truth in it and stop adhering to it. Today, I say to all my brothers and sisters, all of you who are here today, so first of all, thank you very, very much, Ikenna Osimiri. Thank you so much for your presentation today. Thank you, Judy.
Oh, beautiful.
I think we've lost. Oh, Chiegose is back. Okay, there we go. Okay, so, sorry, we lost you there. We kind of kept you out a little bit, but and thank you, Dibia Ochuaja, for the contribution. Thank you, Akachi. Thank you, all of you. Let's see, we have Akachi was doing a lot of writing. Thank you, Kalfani, Kwame Anu. Also want to thank Chukwu Charles. We want to thank my dear people on your heart. We want to thank akimebro and all those other people that I don't know, because we have quite a number of deals there as well. And want to thank all of you for being here today. I hope that what we shared with you, you can add to the repertoire and you can use it to go out there and speak. Like I said earlier, please share. Oh, and Vicky Nettles, how are you? Thank you for being with us. Please, it's exciting that you're with us, but it's also very good if you go out there and share these videos. Share these videos. One of the things I'm going to do is start cutting it up, because it's 2 hours, so those people are not going to watch 2 hours, but I'll start cutting them up into 15 minutes increments so that you can share and share. It's so important that you do that. Again, we're one with nature, honor nature. You get up in the morning, give thanks for nature. That's all I can tell you about Chineke. We believe that we are connected to Chineke through nature. So let us do whatever it is within our power to ensure that we honor nature, and let other people know that we are responsible for destroying nature by putting God outside of what we see, or somewhere hanging somewhere in the clouds, and we tend to ignore what's around us. Dibias, have 2 seconds to give your thanks, because we it's almost time to go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. My great appreciation and thanks to Dibia Ikenna Osimiri, Dibia Ikenna Osimiri, Dibia Owa, and of course Dibia Dr. Chidozie. I appreciate this topic has enriched me, even though I'm part of the panel. But it's really enriched me and just given me a whole lot of things to think about. So thank you all for joining us, and may every way of your lives continue to be light.
You say, Chief Ikenna, any parting thoughts quickly?
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, all of our co-hosts and hosts and visitors. And the only thing I can say to you is to be strong, love yourself as you would love your Creator, and use what God gave you to proceed with your life.
Thank you so much. Dibia Ochuaja.
Yeah, I just want to conclude by saying my story that we represent the original people with the original spirituality from my discovery. And so what Chiism is doing is help to sustain that original spirituality of mankind. And we should keep it up. Thank you all.
Again, thank you, and we'll see you next Sunday on February.
Okay. All right. Okay then.